For the first time in 30 years, a Chinese president has made a visit to Tibet. The first in 30 years. Xi Jinping was in Tibet this week. What for? To mark 70 years of China's annexation of Tibet. They call it the liberation of Tibet. Look at these pictures. This is the moment when Xi Jinping arrived in Tibet. This happened on Wednesday. The Chinese state kept the visit a secret. The pictures were released only today. A group of locals were stationed to welcome the president. They're carrying the Chinese flag. They're dancing. The red carpet has been rolled out and Xi Jinping is waving at the crowds. Why is this our top story? Look at the location. All this was happening just 16 kilometers away from India, 16 kilometers from the line of actual control, the de facto border between India and China. This place is called Ningchi. It lies to the north of India's Tuting sector in Arunachal Pradesh. And the setting is just one part worth noting. The entire visit is laced with messages for India, carefully choreographed to project strength. Xi Jinping wanted to show India, and indeed the rest of the world, that he's in complete control of Tibet and its borders. After pushing Tibetans into mass labor camps and suppressing their cultural and religious freedom, the Chinese president lands there with an entire filming crew. Look at these pictures. What you see are drone shots of Xi Jinping. It was intended to be a grand affair. With all this paraphernalia, the president is leaving this site near Arunachal Pradesh for his next stop. What is the next stop? The Brahmaputra River. The Chinese call it the Yarlung River. The president drove to a bridge here. This is the upper course of the Brahmaputra. The river begins its path from here, and China wants to build what it calls the world's biggest hydroelectric project right here. A dam that could be used to dictate the flow of the waters of the Brahmaputra. Beijing could control the flow to India, dry up the lower basin, or release too much water to cause a flood. It would have a direct impact on India's northern eastern states, like Assam. Xi Jinping went to the potential site of this dam. He also inspected a railway line. Last month, remember, China opened a bullet train line, one that links Lhasa to Ningchi. Reports say this railway line is just 17 kilometers away from the border with India. It is one of the several major infrastructure projects completed near the Arunachal border. The Chinese president calls these projects, quote-unquote, a major step in safeguarding national unity because they go beyond just transporting people. When this railway line was opened, a former in charge of China's Tibet policy issued a statement. He said the same railway line can act as a, quote-unquote, fast track for delivery of strategic materials if a crisis develops at the border. And we all know what kind of crisis this official was referring to, the possibility of a war with India. In recent years, the Communist Party has made moves to tighten its grip on Tibet. The borders are being militarized, thousands of soldiers have been deployed, and this deployment serves two purposes. Number one, it needles India by raising tensions at the disputed border. And number two, the deployment helps in keeping a tab on potential defectors. And China, you must know, is paranoid about this, about defectors, which is why the Communist Party does not even grant passports to many Tibetans. It wants Tibetans to prove their loyalty to the party. In fact, China is coming up with a new form of loyalty test for the people of Tibet. Reports say China has now made it mandatory for each Tibetan family to send one young male to the military. These orders have been issued in specific areas. That's because Beijing wants to set up the recruitment, the recruitment of young Tibetans to the PLA. Because they know the terrain, they're accustomed to high altitudes. They can serve better on the border with India. China's endgame in Tibet is to instill party loyalty, to crush Tibetan culture, to replace Buddhist monks with Communist Party officials. Xi Jinping made that clear with his visit to Lhasa, the capital of the Tibet province. And where did he go in Lhasa? The Potala Palace, the same palace that was once home to the Dalai Lama. Reports say the Chinese president addressed the locals there. He told them, and I'm quoting, as long as we follow the Communist Party and as long as we stick to the path of socialism with Chinese characteristics, we will surely realize the great rejuvenation of the Chinese nation as planned. In other words, follow the party, the rest will fall in place. Unfortunately for Xi Jinping, the world sees Tibet for what it is. It's another matter that the world doesn't choose to do very much about it. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.